If you've been living under a rock for the past 2 weeks, or you're just so averse to everything French that you refuse to watch, Team Vitality won the major last week in front of their own fans. Well, in front of ZywOo and Apex's fans, the rest of them just became fan favourites afterwards, basically. It seemed destined, not least for ZywOo, who's been on a crash course with the major MVP trophy since the day of his birth, given its coincidence with the release date of CSGO. Vitality in front of the French lifting the major. It just seemed right. Unless you hate the French, of course. But it wasn't always like that. The first version of this roster actually had Happy on it, who you might have heard of. He was quickly moved on, because it was 2018, and Alex put in his place, making the roster MBK, RPK, Alex, Apex and ZywOo. You might notice that even for 2018, that was a nostalgic looking roster, and there might have been the odd concern about firepower, which were quickly dissuaded, because ZywOo is really good. That was what originally made people excited for this team. It wasn't the return of RPK, which was fun, and it wasn't seeing MBK and Apex play together again, which was also interesting. It was the prodigy that they were passing their knowledge onto. And Vitality were shit hot. They had multiple tournament wins, ECS, CS Summit, and even when they didn't win, they came pretty close, most notably second in Cologne. But this roster always had an expiry date. We called it nostalgic, but that's very much a euphemism for aging. And that wasn't even the main reason. Though their performances were solid, there were some frictions internally which led to NBK being cut, as is tradition. His replacement? Shox, which we assure you at the time was still kind of exciting. Whatever happened to Shox after Vitality and at the end of his career, he was still a superstar in his own right, and seeing him on a real French super team again was fun. Did it work? Well, sort of. It didn't really get any worse and continued their run as a genuine top tier team. Semis in Beijing, a win at Epicenter and another finals berth at Cologne, but punctuated by some mediocre performances in the middle. Alex, however, wasn't happy, not with his performances and not with his team's performances, but with the life of being a pro player. Citing travel and time away from home as the biggest reason, he was burnt out and moved to the bench, leaving Vitality without a bona fide in-game leader. So it was the Shox in-game leader experiment again, with Masuta taking Alex's spot, but it went kinda well. Third to fourth at IEM New York Online, second at DreamHack Open 4, first at Beijing and Blast. They did also have Nivera for a bit, which was weird. Do you remember when teams just all decided a 6-man roster was a good idea and then collectively realised it wasn't a good idea? That was fun. Things started going downhill quite quickly when the online era started, and Nivera quickly defected to the other game as RPK retired and Vitality picked up Kyojin in his spot, which was ill-fated. When the major came back to LAN, Vitality rocked up with a full French lineup. Masuta had been a solid second star, Shox and Apex brought their veterancy, ZywOo was one of the best players in the world still, and Kyojin was there too. While Vitality was still good, at least good enough to come back from 0-2, beat Astralis and smack Entropic, they weren't good enough. Na'Vi beat them quite easily, and it was quite clear ZywOo needed some help. It did actually outfrag Simple after all. Vitality went on to win IEM Winter not long after against Ninjas in Pajamas? We're not sure what happened here. 2021 was a strange time. But they were unsatisfied. Shox and Kyojin were swapped out as Vitality began their ascent upon a major. If you're trying to get ZywOo his first major and your org its first major, there's a couple of specialists for the job. If you want to win a Champions League, you hire Carlo Ancelotti. If you want to make a stoner comedy, you hire Jonah Hill. If you want to win a major, you sign Magisk and Dupree. Much like the rest of the Vitality story though, it wasn't easy. Katowice was disappointing, Pro League a disaster, and Antwerp a non-event for Vitality. The move away from French seemed to affect their cohesion, and Dupree and Magisk weren't setting the world alight. Dallas and Cologne were equally lackluster, and it was clear that Masuta looked uncomfortable in his new roles. And so Vitality took inspiration from the massive overachievers ENCE and stole the jewel from their team Spinks. Immediately they looked better, sweeping Pro League and qualifying for Rio straight after. Vitality were going to Rio as the form team, though they didn't exactly take off in the challenger stage, they snuck through, and then
A 2 versus 3 presents itself now, but ENCE just tuck. They don't give them any more fights.
No smoke for this bomb either. They've got kits, they've got a kill, they've got no time to work with. Quick tap, it's a fake out. Dupree spraying away. Madden wins the fight. And Magisk, he's gonna fall. Surely, pistol out. 1v1. Valdez in the sight with the knife, and it's in a disaster. An embarrassment. Danish domination. In a 2-on-4, the Vitality cannot close.
back to square one. Vitality continued to be a strong team. I mean, for fuck's sake, there's a Spinks, ZywOo and 3 former major winners on it. But something wasn't quite right. Indeed, some French people believed it to be a lack of French people. And they were sort of right. Jack stepped in for dupreeh after the birth of dupreeh's child and immediately improved Vitality. Turned out a player who was willing to die for their 2 stars only helped them. dupreeh came in and Vitality crumbled just after Jax had gotten to playoffs. Rather than replace dupreeh, Vitality had humbled him. dupreeh realised that he wasn't the star of this team, and should instead be a bit part player, and that ability to control one's ego is what makes dupreeh the greatest winner of all time. Vitality were reinvigorated, and this time went to Rio and won, but we've seen them win the big tournament just before and fail to win the big one. This time, Vitality wouldn't let it happen. Thus ends the story of Team Vitality in CSGO majors. ZywOo got the major he needed and deserved, Magis got level with Device and Zip, and dupreeh? Well, he put aside his ego to become the only 5-time major winner in CSGO, the greatest winner to ever touch the game, just as we accidentally predicted in the dupreeh video.